friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. Starting on a new project today, and this one's going to be a humdinger, I think. The Gibson company made some pretty classic old guitars, and I would say this has to fall in there somewhere. It's an SJ200. Look at that baby. Start off at the peg head here and let you see that. Just kind of dull, really dull looking there. There's what the back of it looks like with the tuning keys. Let's see if it looks original. Yeah, that looks original up there. Yeah, I think it is. I think that's all original. That's what it looks like. It's kind of been abused up there, it looks like a little bit. And there's the inlay and the fretboard. Based on the pictures that I Googled, this looks pretty typical of the, it looks pretty standard. I think this is, about as standard as they come. Except where someone had put this extra pickguard on this side and just ruined the finish. And of course, the floral pickguard, the fancy pickguard that was down here, is missing. Can we come up with something for that? I don't know. And then the back looks pretty darn nice. Actually, the back's in pretty darn good shape for the age of this thing. And I didn't look up the serial number here to see the age of it. You're welcome to do that. It's A14262. Just guessing. It's probably 50s. I'm just guessing, just totally guessing 1950s just by looking at it. It could be a little earlier, it could be a little later. But if I was guessing, that's where I'd put it, in the 50s. And I am guessing. So there you go. And I'm sure I could look it up, but who's got time to do that when you got all these other instruments sitting here waiting to be worked on? The bridge is coming off this sucker. You can see that. You can probably see under it there. I don't even have to help you. You can see under there. See if this thing will focus on the bridge. There you go. Mechanically, it's in pretty good shape other than the bridge. I don't see any real problems with the body or the binding or anything. Everything looks good. And when I look down this, I'd say the neck angle is absolutely perfect. I mean, as far as I can tell, and I'm just looking right now. I can't really tell for sure, but right now it looks perfect. I don't know if these were perfectly flat or if there was a slight bulge, because there is a slight bulge in this. So I don't know if they were built flat and this one is just pulled up or what. I didn't research that part yet. But we got quite a bit of work to do here. But on the other hand, I just bid it at about 5-hour job. So I'm hoping I can keep my part of it down to around 5 hours, something like that, to help the guy out. We're not going to try to restore it like brand new. We're just trying to make it look like it's been cared for yet again. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if I can improve the looks of this area right here. And I'm going to start off with our trusty lighter fluid and see what that does to it. Just rubbing it around there and see if it does anything to this stuff that's on there and where it's pulled to finish up. I don't have a lot of hope for making that look better, to be honest with you, but we're just going to see what we can do. I got the old Zippo lighter fluid there, and I'm just going to rub it around on this to see. Yeah. The problem is this part here is the original finish. This part here has been pulled up. The finish is just pulled up. There's no finish there. So odds are we're not going to get any improvement out of this, at least not much, I don't think. And I'm just rubbing it around to at least clean it, that we can start with that. Doggone it anyway. That's a shame, because that's pretty much ruined right there. And to put a pickguard back on it, I guess that might be the best option, make a match, but I don't like that option because it's not the way it came out from the factory. But that might be what you have to do to cover up this mess now that somebody created it. It's a sad thing, because this guitar up in vintage condition is definitely in the $3,000 to $4,000 range minimum, And I saw one listed that was in very good condition for $6,500. So it's kind of a sad deal. These bridge pins, there's only 3 of them, and I doubt we'll ever find any 3 that match those, so those will probably be history. There's very little hope for fixing that, really. I don't know if there's any kind of a treatment I could do to this to blend it back. I can't really think there's going to be much. Thought I'd just show you a close-up of the label there. Maybe we can even zoom in a little bit more. And hold it still, and that way you can look up the serial number yourself. This end pin is sticking out and bugs me because it's sticking out so far. It's not in there right at all. And I don't think that's an original end pin for it because of the way it's sticking out. So I'm going to see if I can pull it out of there. I got these plastic jaw pliers here. Yeah, it's some kind of an aluminum end pin. It's hollow. Not exactly sure what that's all about, but I don't think we'll be putting that back in because I don't think that's original to it. While I think on this and ponder what I can maybe do to improve the looks of that, I'm going to see if we can get this bridge started off of there. I can see a repair that I hadn't noticed before. There was a big hole gouged out here, and somebody's put in a piece of wood to fill that in this. I don't know if that'll show up very well, but you can see this hole here has been repaired, and there's a chip out between those 2 holes, and there's a chip out in here. It's quite messed up there. We might, looks like maybe this has been repaired too. What we might do is put an overlay in this area here and re-drill it and make it all look one way at least. But anyway, first thing we got to do is get these bolts out of here. And I have yet to find any bolts that were too tight to just undo them by hand with a socket. So I've got this little socket. I'm going to reach in here, and yeah, that one's definitely loose. I don't know if there's any washer. I don't feel a washer there. Just a nut's all I feel. We'll take a look up there with this and see if we can see if there's a washer there. Yeah, I think there is. It's embedded in the wood. Very tiny little washer, and it's just embedded in there. There, I got it out. Took the little screwdriver and raked around on it there. This is not an easy one for a couple of reasons. First of all, the bolt is in, those bolts are still through there. Now, and those bolts are covered with this pearl. If I go digging on that, I'm going to bust that all out and maybe even bust the pearl. That's the first problem, to get those bolts out. And then the second problem is the way this bridge is made, as you can see, it's hollow all the way down to the guitar top. So these little pieces here, you look at them 2 times in a row and you're going to break them. I mean, you can only glance at that, otherwise you're going to break it. And that's just about how fragile that is. This grain going across this way, it just wants to break. Why it's not already broke, I don't know. I would say that's just pure luck because of the way this is pulled up here, that this didn't break yet. And it doesn't look like it's broke anywhere. But I can tell you for sure that's fragile as glass, and actually maybe more fragile than glass. And if you know anything about woodworking, you know what I'm telling you is 100% true. That's just wanting to break big time right across that, because the grain runs this way through here. And wow, that will be a miracle among miracles if we get that off without breaking it. You can see I've got my trusty heater going here, and the one that I made for removing bridges. And I've got it set on 380 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to let this thing heat up. At the moment it's around 250 degrees. It doesn't take very long. I've only had it on maybe a minute. So it heats up pretty fast. It's up to 270 degrees now. I'm afraid it's going to mess with the pearl is what I'm afraid of in this particular case. But we got to do something, and you know, I'm just doing the best I can with what I got to work with here. I'm going to start just seeing if I can get anything under here, you know, without really prying, because prying is going to break it. I just know for sure. It's working in underneath the end of here. That's a real good sign. And it definitely goes under here, no problem, but under here, yeah, it's working under here too, so that's a real good sign. That's probably the reason it didn't break, is because both ends seem to be loose. That's a real good thing. So if we only have to take it loose in the middle, that might keep it from breaking. So we might have lucked out on that one. I can tell you for sure that baby is tight on this front end. It's getting very, very, very hot. I know those pearl pieces are going to want to come out of there next, and I don't really want them to come out, but I don't know what to tell you on that. It's just the way it is. Let's see if I can get the saddle out. I don't know if the saddle's going to come out either. The saddle almost looks like it's glass. I mean, it looks really hard and brittle. I don't know anything about that saddle that's in there. It almost looks like mother of pearl even. Alright, I'm going to have to get serious here and heat up this knife. Boy, pushing for all I'm worth there, and it's not wanting to go. And I kind of melted the finish there in the front of it, unfortunately. I was afraid that was going to happen. Where it is tight, it's very tight. The rest of it's loose. So we lucked out on the pieces that want to break. I think we kind of lucked out there. I think we did. Although this one here seems tight on there it lifted. Made some progress right there. We might actually have it loose, but it sure doesn't feel like it wants to come up yet. There we go. There's some fibers or something holding it besides just the bolts. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. You just witnessed a miracle right on video. We got that bridge off without breaking those pieces, without taking the bolts out. That was a miracle on video. And it did pull up a little bit of the fiber, but really that's just paper thin. It's not enough to care about. So we lucked out again here, right on film. Now that we got the bridge off, I can tell just by feel under here that right across here, it's peaked like this. On the top, it's like this. On the inside, of course, it's the under that, you know, it's a V on the inside. And that's the little bridge plate that's in there. And I gotta tell you, the bridge plate's pretty tiny again. I would say the bridge plate's only about this wide. It doesn't even go to the front of the bridge here. And I don't think it covers the back even. I think it cuts through about here. And with all those holes in a straight line, including the extra 2 holes for the bolts, you just got a weak spot right there. It's really weak. So we've got to find a way to flatten that out and strengthen that, or we're just going to repeat the problem. So I'm going to turn the camera off and do some pondering. Got my trusty little camera here, and we're going to go inside and see what we see on the bridge plate there. There you go. You can see it's pretty chowdered up in there. I'm going over to the base side. This is the base side. There's where the little screw goes through. These are the pin holes. And let's see if we can see this side. So you can see this is a fairly narrow strip. It's not very big. It's also, you know, based on what I can see there, that's probably maple. You know, that's fairly good choice of wood. At least it's a hardwood, I think. It doesn't look like it's spruce just based on this picture, but it's really hard to tell on the picture. Just trying to back off there to see if we can see any, you know, brace damage there or any loose braces. And braces that I can see look like they're in pretty good shape. Here's the X bracing here in front. It's so close it's hard to tell what you're seeing there, but as far as I can tell, all the braces look pretty solid, really. It's just that bridge plate is definitely warped and it's definitely small. Just for the record, I did try to look up the serial number on this, and it's very difficult on Gibsons. You know, I already guessed it in the 50s. My best guess, based on the serial number, is a 1953. It's an A14262, but I'm still just kind of guessing. But you know, what I can find on their serial numbers leads me to believe it's a 1953. I would have guessed it in the 50s. I don't know. I just had this feel for figuring out about the decade they're built, you know, because I've done it so much. And it's kind of like the smell, the look, the feel of it, you know, the way the wood is aged, etc., the binding age. And just by looking at it, I would say 1950s is what I would have guessed. And then based on the serial number, that kind of verifies it, and it says 53 is what it says. Well, I was born in 54, and I'm not in much better shape than this guitar's in. So, maybe I'm not even in as good a shape. I haven't had much luck here offline. I'm trying, you know, I don't study all the models like I told you. And I'm trying to understand, is this a perfectly flat top or was there some little bulge in it? And so far I haven't been able to really find that information. I think it was supposed to be flat. Just based on what I can see here, it looks like this is an unnatural bow to me. I've done a number of things like this over the years with some success and some not so good. You know, I don't expect this to cause any problem, but I don't know that it'll fix the problem either. You know, there's such a hump in this top, and it's really significant. I took this board here is very smooth on the side that's touching the guitar. I also beveled off all the corners and rounded off the corners so that nothing will be, you know, making an imprint in the top. So it's just the smooth board laying across there and it's perfectly flat. On the inside, I put a flat board a little thicker than this, but similar to this in shape. There's a V in that bridge plate, and I'm trying to take this thing here and, you know, put it across that V and flatten it out, squeeze it with these clamps and flatten it out. In fact, now that I've tightened these two clamps down to press the top down, these are a little looser now again. So I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to use force really to straighten the wood back out. It's not likely to fix the problem, but if we can get it flat to start with a little bit, then maybe we can reinforce it and keep it flat. I think I'm just going to let it sit like this for a few hours at minimum and see if I notice any difference or improvement at all. Just trying out of the box ideas, because this thing is, you know, over, you know, it's been what, 60 some years. It's just, you know, it's just had its way, and it's just bowed, and it doesn't want to come back in an hour or two, I can tell you that for sure. So you got to be a little careful how you do this too. You can't just put a ton of force on something, because it'll start breaking this old stuff. So you got to, you know, sneak up on it, you know, and that's what I do with these clamps. I just lightly tighten them a little bit more if I can feel a little bit of looseness in them. The guitar has been setting this way for over the whole weekend, maybe even a little longer. So it's been several days. So we're going to take all this rigmarole off of here now and see if it's helped it at all. I'm not sure it's going to help it much, but it couldn't hurt, that's for sure. I don't think it's dramatically different, but I don't feel quite this steep V that was in there before. It's more of a rounded V, if you will, or a U more than it is a V now. I mean, it was pretty much like a crease across there on the inside before. You could feel it very distinctly. Now it's a very subtle U, if you will. Very subtle, actually. But I can still tell it's got a little bow in it. I don't think it would be any point in putting the bridge back on here right now like it is, because this is still leaning forward a little bit. Still, well, not too bad. It's pretty flat compared to the way it was. It definitely helped it. But it's not, you know, it's not going to stay this way. And if you just do the same thing over again, it's just going to pull it right back in there. So we're going to have to do something to try to help and stabilize this. I think we're going to have to figure out something maybe to add on to the plate, expand the size of the plate a little bit to just stiffen this area. Otherwise, it's just going to pull right back up again. Friends, it's been a long time since I was able to get back to the Gibson guitar here. As a matter of fact, according to the time card, April 1st, I worked on it, and then now today is May 13th. So there you go. It's been a while. And the reason it took me so long to get back to it was because I was working on those twin mandolins. I had a deadline on them to get them finished, and so I really had to just devote my time to finishing those. And you know, I couldn't do anything else. When you're working on those, when you're building instruments, you know, it pretty much consumes your whole day, all day long for every day that you're working on them. Not to mention I have a lot of other farm projects too, so I wasn't working 24 hours a day on those by any stretch. Looking at this Gibson, you know, the thing I hate the most about it is this hump in here, and it's a pretty big hump. It was, I had pressed it, I believe, and I think that'll be in an earlier video, where I pressed this flat for several days, actually about a week, with some boards. And if it helped it any, it's hard to tell. I mean, it helped it a little maybe, but I really think the thing to do is to take the bridge plate out of this. If I can get it out, put in a larger bridge plate, clamp this thing flat as a pancake, at least it'll have a chance. Because right now it has no chance of staying where it's at. I mean, you know, people talk about fixing them with moisture and humidity and, you know, pressing them into place. And here's my take on it, and it's just black and white simple. If it pulled in this shape the way it is, new from the factory, what's the chances of pushing it back and it's not going to pull back up again? I mean, it's going to pull back up. So to me, if you don't fix it mechanically, you're just wasting your time. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I've got the little StewMac plate puller in here, and I got in here and I can see that there's actually a crack in the top right here that kind of opens up when you start pulling on this. So what I'm going to do is take my new bridge heater that I used on this, and I'm going to heat this area right in here and try to heat it hot enough to soften that plate to get it out of there. You know, it looks like it fits in between there pretty good without getting onto too much finish, which is a good thing. And we're going to plug it in and let it do its thing. It'll get up to 300 and I think about 85 degrees, something like that. I can't remember what 380 is what I have it set on. It shows it right there. So we'll let it do its thing, warm that up, and we'll see if we can't pull it out of there. Well, I walked in the other room to do something and just only was in there for a couple minutes and came back, and this thing's already up to temperature. So it only takes it a couple minutes to get up to temperature, which is really nice. I'm going to just kind of hold it there and really let it heat that up good and hot. It's starting to scorch just a little bit. I don't really want to, you know, burn it exactly, but I do want it really hot. I'm going to reach in here now and see if that softened it at all. Not so much I can tell. Yeah, actually it is going through there. It's this is actually broke all the way across here, and I didn't realize that either till I started prying on this. You can see it though, that it is actually cracked. It's really good that we're trying to take all this out of here and repair it. It's really hard to do because you got something tight that's against something that's soft, and it doesn't want to give. I'm going to push down right here to try to give me something to push against. It's coming a little bit, but boy, not very much. Man, it's going to be a tough thing to do. I'm going to set this on there too to heat it up. The noise you're hearing in the other room is Ron making antler saddles, deer antler saddles. Not an easy process taking a bridge plate out of an instrument. Even if the guitar top was really solid, it's hard to get it out. But one that's weakened like this one is, it's, well, maybe 3 times harder. I don't think there's any chance of me getting that out of there. I don't think there's any chance. It's kind of loose right here, but that's the only place it's loose. Put Chuck's light in here to see if that lights it up a little better, where I can see it a little better. This thing needs a plate that fills the whole area in that area there. I don't see much hope in it though, I gotta be honest. I don't see much hope in getting this out. Well, this is definitely one of those situations where you're gonna make it a lot worse before you make it a lot better. I can't believe it. I think I got it. And that came out halfway clean too. But you can, I don't know if you can see very well how curved it is. You can see how curved that thing is already. And you know, that's only this wide, and to have that much curve in something that narrow, that just shows you that you're just not going to flatten that out, you know. Oh, that's wonderful to get that out of there. Let's see how much damage. I don't think we did much damage, actually. Yeah, it looks really clean. I'll take that. I mean, I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but it's very clean. I think you can see the holes there that how clean it is. It's very clean. So I'm incredibly happy with that. You can tell from this that it came off pretty clean. Actually, you can see right here in this area, I don't think it was glued in this area. You know, all this was glued obviously, and all this was glued, but right through here, I don't think it was glued at all. From here all the way through. So that gives you some idea of why it was a problem. Got a piece of cardboard here. Unfortunately, it has a fairly large hole in it, but I think I can work around that. I can put the hole in this. this would be the neck of the guitar this way. This is the back of the guitar that way. What I'm trying to do then is just enlarge this bridge plate. Just using the cardboard as a pattern to see if what I cut out is going to be good or if I need to do something else. Actually, I know this is short, so I'm going to make this a little longer here. And then there's a brace coming through here, so I'm just going to take and try that. In other words, I really want a much bigger bridge pad than what's in there. There's just no way that a small bridge pad is going to fix this problem. And I know people are instantly saying, won't that affect the sound? Yes, it will affect the sound, but most likely only a dog could hear the difference. You'd be surprised. It doesn't. As long as you do high quality wood and do it well, it won't affect the sound very much. If I used some piece of crud wood and just made it real thick and blocky, and yeah, it would change the sound. But I'm going to use a piece of Paduke, which is quarter sawed, transfers sound very well. I doubt seriously you'll notice any difference unless it's better. I actually think it might actually make it better. But I'm going to start off with this being really big, and more likely it won't fit in there, and then we'll have to cut it down. But that's okay. I'll just go across there for now. I know that's way too big, but you got to start somewhere. So basically it would fit under there something like this. Once again, I didn't have the camera all the way on, I don't think. But I'm cutting this down to make it go through the sound hole. There, it went through the sound hole. Now let's see if it fits into the spot. Wow, it actually fits the spot. I'm amazed. That's pretty cool. I think we could make it bigger in some areas though. Hold it up with that. Get inside there with my mirror and take a look at what we got. Well, it looks pretty darn good everywhere except this upper corner here. And this upper corner, although we probably won't be able to get it through there if I do that, I guess that's as good as we're going to do, because if I add to this corner, I would like to add a 1/2 inch to this corner down to nothing. That would make it fit the brace better, up in the brace that's up in there. Unfortunately, I can't do that because I can't get it through the hole. I don't think I can get it through the hole. Let me think about this. No, I can't get it through the hole if I do that. So this is going to be the shape it looks like, because this actually fits really well, with the exception of there's about this much space left down to nothing here, and I would like to fill that. That would be awesome, but I don't think I can. I'm going to look at it one more time just to make sure. I think that feels like it fits really well. I'm better than I even really thought it would. Yeah, that's good. That's what we need right there. It fits it really, really well. Now, you know, that's so much bigger than this, obviously. Here's what it used to look like that. And so we're adding a lot of structural support behind it and even some in front of it, to keep it from doing this bow thing again. And I don't think it's going to hurt the sound. I really don't. And the bottom line is, the sound ain't going to be any good anyway unless you can fix it and play it. And you got to be able to play it. And this top is busted up and twisted, and it just isn't going to be playable the way it is. So we've got to fix it. And here's how I'm going to do it. Okay. Here is the situation. This would be the way that you would typically put it on here, because this is the front of the guitar here, that's the back of the guitar. This would be perfectly perpendicular then if you did it something like that. Here's my thinking. Now I have to admit, this is kind of an experiment. I'm thinking I'm going to do it this way for two reasons. Not only will that save material, but the more important reason is that will put the grain at a 45. Now, you think, well, why would you want it at a 45? Well, if the grain is going perfectly through here this way, it'll bend easier. If it's going through at a 45, there's not much chance it's going to bend. So I think that'll make this plate the strongest possible plate that I can put in here, and keeping it the same thickness, etc. So I really think that's the way to go. It's not a perfect 45, but it's close enough. And you know, it's definitely not, you know, because it'll, you know, you have to picture it going in like this into the guitar. It's not going in like this. So, you know, it's similar to a 45, which would be cutting the angle across this. It's still going across grain, which is what you want, but it's going across grain at a 45, which will keep this even stiffer. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know, it's an experiment, but I believe it's the right way to go on this particular instrument. All right, we can go cut that out now and see how that fits in there. Well, there's what she looks like. I just test fitted it inside the guitar by hand, and it works. I had the light on in there and I had my mirror up in there, but there just wasn't enough room to show you. But it really fits perfectly in there, and I think more importantly, I really am happy with the 45-degree angle idea. That just, I think, makes all kinds of sense in this particular case, because I don't think you'll be able to bend this in that 45 degree. You could bend it this way, no problem, because it's got the lines going this way. And you want the lines going across. See, these lines are going this way, so you do want the lines going across, there's no question. But having them go across at a 45 is even better, I think, in this case. Now I'm going to thin this down. It's still pretty darn thick. The old one was 130. Right now this is right at 170. So we're going to take about 40 thousandths off of this. Well, that's what the final piece looks like. It's I even beveled all of the edges that will be exposed. That's what you will see, is the beveled edge on the inside. On the flat side here, I didn't bevel it. I left it square. And I took acetone and wiped this down with acetone really good, and it just wiped all kinds of resins out of there. So hopefully we're just about ready to glue this in place. But before I get in any hurry and do that, a couple of things. Number one, I want to check the inside, make sure it's good and flat, and smooth, clean, and everything. I might even take a damp rag and wipe around in there to get rid of any dust and stuff. Secondly, I want to try to devise a really good flat clamping system that's going to make this top as flat as possible. So those are the two things I want to do first. So this was a clean towel, and I just dampened it down, and I think you can probably see the dirt that came off on the inside there. Now, that's not that much, but it's worth doing to get rid of that dust and dirt that's in there so that you're gluing it to a good clean surface. And we'll do it again and just wipe it down one more time. Clean that whole area. And a little bit more came off, but not too bad. All right, I'm going to double check and make sure it all fits up in there good and tight. Looks good. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a real flat board, and I'm going to sand the edges of the board. So if anything, this has I'm exaggerating obviously, but I want the edges to go up very, very, very slightly on the board that I'm going to put on here, so that the most pressure is going to be right here in the center to flatten this down that way. Well, I believe I got lucky. I found this piece of oak in my scrap wood pile. I sanded it smooth on this side. I beveled the corners so that they won't make an imprint on the top of this guitar. And you notice it rocks big time on here like this. Well, it's got a slight underbow, and in the 18 inches that go across here, it's about a 1/16 of an inch off of this edge and about a 1/16 of an inch off of this edge. So that means that I'm, in the middle here, it's about a 1/16 of an inch. It's going to be pressed in a little bit, about a 1/16 of an inch. But, keep in mind, this is bowed really big on its own. So this will pull it down, and I think that'll be the perfect board to glue this up with. So it's going to be a little process here, getting this all in here, and getting it all clamped and etc. I'm going to need to make me a good call on the inside here to hold this too. So I got to make that call first also. Well, I'm going to tell you, I had to do some work there to make a call to make this work. It fits in there perfectly, just like a glove now. I'll show you what we got. Let's take out, this is the bridge pad, if I can get it back out, which may not work. There we go. Okay, the bridge pad goes in there about like that. And here's the call I had to make. And see, I had to bevel these edges off in order for it to go through this round hole. It wouldn't go through as thick as it is. But it's just a piece of plywood that I've sanded flat, and it should hold that up in there really good and tight now. And just for the record, I've got a piece of this parchment paper laid across here so that the glue that squeezes out through these holes won't stick to anything. And by the way, in tearing this parchment paper, you can notice how I did such a wonderfully clean job tearing it off. I'm pretty sure you need to be a lady to do that, because I've seen women tear that stuff off of those cardboard tear things all the time, and they just rip it right off, no problem. I don't think I've ever done that once in my life. So they have a skill set that I don't possess. I am going to flood this with some glue. Since I'm only putting glue on the one side, I'm going to be a little liberal with it and put quite a bit of glue on here. I don't want a ton of squeeze out, but on the other hand, I want to make sure that glue makes it to the surfaces everywhere else. And I did glue it to the right side, proper side, or whatever you want to call it, because the bevel is on the other side, so I know that's how it goes. It's another good reason to have that little bevel on there. Okay, I believe we're good. I've already got the caul inside. I've set these big heavy clamps to the right size approximately. The problem with my normal bridge clamps is they don't open up wide enough for as much stuff as we're gluing up here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get this in there and get it in approximate location. Got it in the place. I'm hoping it's going to just kind of sit there for just a second while I get the caul, and it won't. You'd think you could get it to just kind of stick there for just a second, but it won't. I don't even think I can turn loose of it long enough to grab the caul. So I'm going to have to turn it over, put the caul in. I have to turn it over like this. Get a hold of that caul up in there somewhere, wherever it is now. Okay, turn it back now. I believe I've got it all up in there good and tight. I just hope glue doesn't squeeze out and get on my caul. I hope not. I don't know. Be my luck, that's what had happened. Hoping I can get this in here before the caul falls out. These long ones, I'm going to put them on the ends, and I put it in the wrong place there, but that's okay, I can move it. Trying to find where the end is there. It feels like it might be it about right there. Try to get my light back in there and see what I can see. Okay, this one needs to come back this way. That one's probably okay. And now we'll put one in the middle. Now we're going to crank them down pretty good. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these clamps on these edges to push this middle down. Okay, now I have these clamps pulling this bowed board down on the edges. That'll force this middle down a little bit more. I'm actually going to loosen these clamps and retighten them, just because I think that might make it get a little bit flatter. Don't know if it'll help at all or not. Just kind of loosening them, but not really getting them real loose. Just loosen a little bit to hopefully let that glue move a little bit. Now I'll tighten them back up. I don't know how you can get it any flatter than that. I mean, if there's a way to do it and get it flatter, I wouldn't know what it would be. I'm hoping that's going to do the job. That really seemed like a good method. Now I'm going to see if I can see if my clamps are in the right places still. They look pretty good to me. That's about as good as a guy can do. So now if I can get my stuff out, like my light here, I'm not sure I can even get my light out now. Maybe not. Just barely get it out. Well, Chuck, I like your light, man. That's cool. We're going to let that set up for at least 24 hours. Might even let it set for a couple days. Well, this guitar has been clamped in the clamps for this new bridge plate for over 30 hours. Then I took the clamps off and let it set overnight yet again. So it's been well over 48 hours now. And you know, I let it set kind of with the clamps and boards off of it so that it would have time to dry really good, because with all that boards and all the paper and everything on it, you know, I was afraid it wouldn't dry real well. But it has dried really well. This thing is just as flat as a pancake now. It is just perfect. I honestly never thought it would turn out this flat. So you can't beat that. It's just really turned out perfect. I've got the bridge. We're going to put the bridge back on it. But I did notice when I was tapping on it, I don't know if you can hear that, there is a rattle in this, so there is a loose brace somewhere that we'll have to get in there and figure that out. I'm not too worried about that. We can do that whether this is glued on there or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this glued on. This dot was in there, but it was cockeyed, so I just pushed on this pin and it pushed the dot right out. This one here is the dot is in flush, so I don't want to mess with this one. So I think I'm just going to cut the metal off on this one, this screw here. I'm not a fan of those screws, as you know. So they really provide no benefit whatsoever, in my opinion. So I'm just going to cut this off and then take it to a little grinder there and grind it down flush. Took it to the belt sander and sanded it off fairly flush. I'm going to just try to clean up the rest of it here with I didn't want to take anything off the thickness of this. That's why I quit with the belt sander. I just got all the high spots knocked down level. I can't remember if I pointed this out before or not, but these holes have been repaired. Whoever did it did a pretty decent job. When I leveled them all flat there, maybe you can see there's like little half moon spaces around where they were filled. They did it with the proper wood and everything, so that's a good thing. You can see it a little bit here on the top. There is some still chip out here on this top too. I wish it wasn't there, but not much I can do about that. I mean, I can fill it, obviously. We may fill it with some real wood here, depending on how everything turns out and how much we want to go into it. Let's see how that kind of fits up on there. Well, it lays nice and flat now, which is good. All right, this area's inside of here is very dull, and real close to this it's really dull. Before I glue this back, it's a lot easier getting in there now, so maybe I'll try to buff that out just a little bit. This is really dull all around here, so it'd be kind of nice if that was buffed out a little bit. You can see instantly how much dirt that took off of there. Just really, these things do get kind of filthy over the years. And this polishing compound just does a nice job on that. Trying to keep it off of the bare wood there. because we're going to glue the pick guard back down, and I don't really want to mess up bare wood too much. Definitely is cleaning it up. Take the dry part of the rag now and see how that buffed it out there. Oh yeah, that looks so much nicer. Yeah, that looks so much nicer. And we'll try to do that all the way around all these dull areas that are going to be real close to the bridge. Probably when I took the bridge off there, it's got a little burning there on that finish. We may have to touch the finish up a little bit there. I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to do about all these spots here where the finish is melted and pulled up from that other pick guard being on there, because he doesn't want the other pick guard back on there. So I'm not sure what we can do with that yet. I've been really thinking about it, trying to come up with some ideas, and I don't really have a good idea, to be honest. Just got some things I'm going to try. It looks a lot better around there. Still quite dull around here. It's not perfect on this, but it's getting a lot better, and you know, it'll blend in a lot better when we go to buffing out the whole thing later. Maybe you can see the difference between this one and this one. How much nicer it looks. This one's pretty dull over here, and this one over here is pretty shiny. I think that's good enough. Going to just brush it to just, if there's any residue on the wood, hopefully clean the wood off there. That looks pretty good. Can't hardly get much better than that. And lastly, before I glue this back on there, I want to try to clean it up a little bit. It's especially, you know, it's just got some issues. Glue spread around on top of it here and got a lot of discoloration and stuff. So maybe we could clean it up a little bit. I could probably do it after it's on the guitar just as well, but I thought in case I run into anything, it might be nice to have it off the guitar. Well, that scraped off pretty easy, that glue did. Here's a little piece of 320, wet or dry, and I'm just gonna go over the whole thing kind of lightly to see if this pearl will clean up and see what the problems are, because there's just all kinds of gunk on here. This pearl is down in the hole deeper. It's deeper than the rest of it here, so I'm going to see if we can't scrape the wood kind of level with the pearl there just to make it look better. It looks weird having it down in the hole. In other words, this pearl probably came out, somebody put it back in there, but they didn't do it that well. The problem with this is it's all broken out at different places. Hopefully it'll focus on that. You can see it. It's chipped out in different places. Kind of ugly looking, so I'm tempted to take my Dremel and just route it out. In order to do that, I'd have to be able to get this out of here, or at least that would make it a lot easier. I don't know if this is going to come out. This actually feels like it's almost like a ceramic or a glass almost versus normal plastic. It may not be, but actually it's probably some kind of plastic because I can see grooves in there where the strings were, but it just looks weird. It looks different than most plastics. It is a plastic, but I bet it's a very hard, brittle plastic. I wonder if I can somehow get a hold of that and pull it out of there. Probably not. I think it's glued in, which is never good. You never want to glue these in, and I believe it's been glued in. I'd like to fix that because I think we're going to end up with a really nice guitar here, and I hate to have something like this making it look really bad. Something I hadn't really noticed, but upon close inspection I've noticed, is that these string grooves are starting to go into the pearl here up in this part. And I don't like that at all. Here too. It's kind of messed up the pearl. So that makes me want to redo it even a little bit more now. I don't know. Sometimes I should just leave well enough alone, but I really want to fix that. And the other problem with this is it's not, these holes I don't believe are straight across there. They're in a arch. That doesn't make it any easier. If I could get that out, that would sure solve a lot of problems. Oh, it came out that time. Pulled on it, wouldn't come out before. It had been glued in there, I believe. I can see old glue in there, but apparently that just shocked it enough there that it came out that time. All right, that makes it a lot easier now. At least I can get a flat deal going on here and try to route this out. Well, here's my setup. You know, the router will run along this edge here, and I have a spacer in here to hold it back about the right amount. I have this double stick tape on this to just keep it from sliding a little bit. It's not sticking real hard or anything, but it'll just kind of keep it in place. I've got this kind of stationary onto the table with these clamps. This thing is just floating back here, but that's just a support to keep it up at the right height, more or less. So I'm going to give it a shot here. I'm just going to go by eye across there and see how I want to do this. I haven't really tried this like this before. Okay, that turned out pretty good. That got me flat across the bottom there. And I kind of, just by eye, followed this radius around here. I didn't get all the way up to the pearl, which I would like to do. I'm going to do the rest of that by hand with a chisel. I don't know though, it's so much faster with the Dremel tool. I may try to get a little closer. The problem is that I'm hitting this thing now, so I'm going to be doing it freehand, so I might as well just try it right here on the table. It won't move as much, I don't think, on the table. I just put the little double stick tape on here again. Again, it doesn't stick all that great. It just keeps it from just sliding slippery smooth. So I'll just stick it down right here, and I'm going to do this by hand, just by eye. Get up close to the pearl, but not quite touch the pearl. That's pretty good. I did actually get up to the pearl that time with that, and I didn't really cut the pearl. I almost feel like cutting the pearl, to be honest, so that I could get it straight again. I hate those chips in there. Now I just need to clean up the ends. I've got a pretty smooth line there. Not quite as smooth on the backside because it's an arch, but you know, I'm just trying to get rid of all the scarring. There was a lot of scarring, and there's still some. I tell you, I think I'm just going to go ahead and route this backside out to the pearl also, and I'll just fill from one part of the pearl to the other. That looks real good now. I like that a lot better. It's from the pearl to the pearl, so I'm filling everything in inside the pearl there. Now I didn't come all the way out to the ends of these because of these pearl dots. So there's some restrictions there. And speaking of pearl dots, I think I'll put this one back in if I can clean it up here. Get all that old glue off of there. They had some kind of yellow glue on there. Kind of looked like hide glue, actually. It just really made it look bad. I'm going to see if we can get this dot glued back in here before I start messing with the rest of it. Yeah, that looks much better. And now I'll make me a pattern. I'll trace this and make me a pattern, and we'll cut it out of rosewood and set it in there. I just took a little piece of post-it note here. It doesn't really matter. Something thin is actually better. I didn't have much in here in the shop today. Never hurts to draw it in there a little bit if you can. So we just need to make that little piece there out of rosewood. Cut out a little piece of rosewood here that has a very similar look and feel. If we do a good job, you won't hardly be able to tell it. I hope that's what we end up with. I'm going to just rough cut out this stuff here. I'm not going to try to follow the exact lines or anything. And then I think I'm just going to glue stick it to this. Now I should be able to just cut that out on the bandsaw, and it, you know, if we really do a good job, it ought to be real close to fitting. Okay, my approach to this is I cut this angle here, I cut this radius here, and I'm trying to make sure that that fits up the best first. There's a few little problems, but very little. It almost is perfect. It's real close. So I'm just cutting out the little problem areas, the little tiny areas that are problems. Man, I'll tell you what, it's less than a human hair in the worst place, and that's right there. It's very, very, very close. It just looks pretty dang perfect. Okay, the other thing I'm doing is on these flat edges, I've under beveled them, all of them, so that as they go in, they get tighter and tighter. It's pretty close to fitting. Just got a little bit of work to do here. I'd say all I really have to do at this point is knock off some of this top edge, and mostly on this side, just back bevel that some more, and it's going to go right down in there, I believe. It's just a little bit wide right through here, so we're going to go try just touching that on the belt sander, just beveling that a little bit. Well, in my effort to clean this up a little bit right here, I ended up just touching that, and that popped right out. I tell you what, it don't take much, this old glue sometimes. So I'm cleaning up the back of that, and I'm going to put it right back in place. Pretty sure there will be no problem there. I believe this is just about ready to press in. Maybe just a hair yet. Just a hair too tight, I think. It's a little hard to decide how to handle that. It's pressing in pretty well. I don't know how deep it's going. That's my problem. I'd like to see it go in all the way and see how deep my hole is. I think it should be in the neighborhood of 60 thousandths. 61 thousandths. This is probably quite a bit thicker. This is 133 thousandths. So it's more than twice as what it needs. I think I'll take this to my thickness sander first, knock it down, and get it at least under 100 thousandths. Get it down to about 80 thousandths, and then we'll see how well it fits in here. I think it'll be easier to tell. I believe I've got it fitting very near perfect in there now. It's real close to perfect. I think there's a little bit of something on this one corner down on this corner, but I ain't quite figured out where the problem is yet. I'd say it's on the actual corner based on what it's feeling like. So I'm going to try to just sand off the corner. I believe that's it. I don't feel anything moving now. It feels like it's down flush. Now there's only 28 thousandths sticking out. The hole is 60 thousandths deep. So, and this is 90 thousandths thick. So that's 30 thousandths sticking out. I think it's flush. It's right down in there perfect. I don't think it could be any better. It's just about as perfect as it can be. I've looked on the other side, and as far as I can tell, it's all the way inside there. There doesn't look to be a gap on the inside either. It looks like the wood's all the way down to the holes. So if everything's perfect, it's perfect. let's just get her glued in. Because it's rosewood, I'm just going to scratch it just a little bit. It's kind of smooth. Just scratch it just a little bit to make it a little bit more clingy. Force it down in there. That's what it looks like before I put the clamps on it. You can see up close there, I believe, that it's pretty tight. Won't really hardly be able to tell it other than the two little lines on the edges. Otherwise, I think it's pretty much going to blend right in. Even the color of the wood is very close. Alright, so now we just want to put some clamps on that and hold it in place. In fact, I think I'm just going to put it in my vise right here. This vise is handy for things like this because it keeps everything good and flat. Squeeze her down pretty good with that now. Don't want to go crazy, I don't want to break something. But that's pretty tight. We'll just go ahead and let that set up before we mess with it.